The dress tore with a sound like thunder. Ophelia froze as 200 wedding guests gasped in unison. Her ex-husband Jack stood 3 feet away, his hand still gripping the ruined fabric of her modest blue dress, his face twisted in theatrical disgust. Behind him, his bride Bianca covered her mouth, but her eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. "Oops," Jack said loudly, his voice carrying across the marble courtyard of the Grandview estate. "Guess cheap fabric can't handle real quality venues. Maybe you should have stayed home, Ophelia." 8 months pregnant. Broke. Humiliated in front of everyone who mattered in their social circle. This was supposed to be a simple courthouse-mandated appearance, 30 minutes to discuss custody arrangements for the baby, then she could leave. Instead, Jax had orchestrated this. Her public destruction at his moment of triumph. Ophelia pressed her hand against her swollen belly, feeling the baby kick as if sensing her racing heart. The torn dress exposed her shoulder and part of her maternity bra, a $12 Target special because that's all she could afford. Her face burned as phones emerged from designer clutches, cameras pointed at her like weapons. She'd woken at 5 a.m. in her studio apartment, the one with brown water stains on the ceiling and a radiator that clanked like a dying engine. Rent was $1,200 monthly, due in 6 days, and her bank account showed $340. The dress she wore had been borrowed from her neighbor Maria, a retired teacher who'd hemmed it herself to fit over Ophelia's pregnant belly. This morning, she'd skipped breakfast. Not from morning sickness, but because the half-gallon of milk and box of generic cereal needed to last until her paycheck from the diner cleared on Friday. She worked the 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift, standing for 8 hours while her ankles swelled and her back screamed. Tips averaged $60 on good nights. Last week, a table of businessmen had left her $3 on an $89 check. The pregnancy hadn't been planned, but she'd wanted this baby desperately. Jax had wanted her to take care of it, his exact words. When she'd refused, he'd filed for divorce within a week, claiming she'd trapped him. Their marriage had lasted 14 months. The divorce had been brutal. Jax's family owned a successful chain of car dealerships, Moreno Motors, familiar billboards across the state. His lawyer had been a shark in a $3,000 suit. Hers had been court-appointed, perpetually exhausted, juggling 40 cases. Jax had gotten the house, the cars, their savings, even her grandmother's antique ring that she'd brought into the marriage. The judge had awarded her $800 monthly child support once the baby was born, but nothing until then. "You know what's really sad?" Jax continued, playing to his audience. Several guests snickered. She actually thought she belonged here. At a real wedding. With real people. Bianca, 23, Instagram influencer, daughter of a commercial real estate developer, linked her arm through Jax's possessively. Her dress had cost $18,000. Ophelia knew because Jax had texted her a photo of the receipt with the message, "This is what a woman worth marrying looks like." Ophelia had been 24 when they'd met. Working as a junior accountant, living simply, driving a 12-year-old Honda. She'd loved him completely, stupidly. Believed his promises about partnership and forever. Ignored the small cruelties that became large ones. The way he'd criticized her clothes, her body, her dreams of eventually opening her own financial consulting firm. "I think you should leave," Bianca said sweetly, her voice sugar-coated poison. "Before you embarrass yourself more. This is a Vera Wong wedding, not a Goodwill clearance sale." The guests laughed louder now. Ophelia recognized faces, Jax's college friends, his business associates, women from the junior league who'd stopped returning her calls the moment the divorce was announced. Not one person defended her. Not one. She spotted Jax's mother, Patricia, near the champagne fountain. The woman who'd once called Ophelia daughter, now looked away deliberately, adjusting her diamond bracelet. Jax leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for her. "You're nothing, Ophelia. You were nothing when I met you, and you're nothing now. Just a broke little nobody who got knocked up and thought she'd scored a meal ticket." His smile was vicious. "I'm going to make sure you get supervised visitation only." What judge would give a child to someone living in a slum? Something inside Ophelia, something that had been bending for months, went still instead of breaking. She looked at Jax, really looked at him. Saw the cruelty she'd excused as stress. The narcissism she'd mistaken for confidence. The emptiness behind his expensive veneers and designer tuxedo. Near the venue's entrance, she glimpsed a figure, a woman in an elegant black suit, watching intently. Next to her, two men in dark clothing. They'd been following Ophelia for 3 weeks now. She'd noticed them finally last Tuesday. Yesterday, they'd introduced themselves. And everything had changed. Ophelia straightened slowly, one hand protectively over her belly. She met Jax's eyes and smiled, a small secret smile that made his smirk falter just slightly. "You're right," she said quietly. "I should go." She turned toward the exit, holding the torn dress together, feeling 200 pairs of eyes on her back. Behind her, Jax's laughter echoed. He had no idea what was coming. He had no idea who she really was. And in exactly 6 days, at his reception, she would show him. What do you think happens when Ophelia discovers the truth about her identity? Drop your prediction below. Does she go for quiet revenge or complete public destruction? 6 days earlier, Ophelia had been collecting glasses from table 7 when the cramping started. Not Braxton Hicks. Real pain that doubled her over mid-step. The tray crashed. Glass shattered. Her manager Rick emerged from the kitchen, already yelling about the cost of replacement plates before he saw the blood spreading down her legs. The ER doctor had been kind but firm. Placental abruption. Early stage. Complete bed rest for 2 weeks minimum or you risk losing the baby. "I can't," Ophelia had whispered. "I work 6 shifts a week. I'll lose my apartment." The doctor had pressed a card into her hand, a social worker, and left her in the sterile room with its flickering fluorescent light and the smell of disinfectant that made her stomach heave. She'd taken a cab home. $17. Money she didn't have. The eviction notice was taped to her door when she arrived. 72 hours to pay $2,400, 2 months back rent plus late fees, or be forcibly removed. Her landlord had scrawled at the bottom, "No more excuses." Ophelia had sunk onto her second-hand couch and cried until her ribs hurt. That night, lying in her lumpy bed with the streetlight glare coming through blinds she couldn't afford to replace, she'd called Jax. Desperate. Humiliated. But desperate. "The baby's in danger," she'd said when he answered. "I need help. Just this once. Please." His sigh had been theatrical. "Always some crisis, isn't it? Let me guess, you want money." "I need bed rest. I'm going to lose our child if—" "Your child," he'd corrected coldly. "You chose to keep it. Not my problem if you can't afford your choices." "Jax, I'm begging. Know what Bianca said when I told her you called last week?" His voice turned mocking. "She said you're probably faking the pregnancy to manipulate me. Smart girl, my Bianca. Not a desperate leech like some people." He'd hung up. Ophelia had stared at her phone for 20 minutes, watching the battery percentage drop from 14% to 12 to 10. She couldn't afford to charge it. The electricity had been shut off that morning. The next day, she'd gone back to work. Bed rest was a luxury for women with safety nets. She had none. Day 3, she'd fainted during the lunch rush. Rick had fired her on the spot. Can't have pregnant girls passing out. Liability issue. No job. No money. No options. She'd sat on the curb outside the diner in the June heat, sweat soaking through her uniform, and Googled homeless shelters that accepted pregnant women. The nearest one had a 6-week wait list. Her phone had buzzed. A text from Jax. "By the way, you're invited to the wedding. Court says we need to discuss custody arrangements. So put on your best Walmart dress and try not to embarrass yourself in front of real people." 2 p.m. Saturday. Grandview Estate. A photo followed. Him and Bianca, laughing, holding champagne flutes. The caption, "Upgrade complete." Then another text, "P.S. I'm filing for full custody. Already got 3 witnesses ready to testify you're unstable. Enjoy being a broke single waitress. Oh wait, you got fired." Ophelia had vomited on the sidewalk. That night, 4 nights before the wedding, she'd packed her few possessions into 2 garbage bags. The eviction was final. She had nowhere to go. Maria next door had offered her couch for a few days, but the woman lived in a 1-bedroom with her disabled grandson. There was no space. Ophelia had sat on her stripped mattress, hands on her belly, and whispered to her daughter, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I can't give you better than this. The knock on her door at 9 p.m. had startled her. 3 people stood in the hallway. The woman in the black suit. 2 men in dark clothing. Professional. Expensive. Out of place in this building where the walls smelled like mildew and disappointment. Miss Castellano, the woman had said. It's Moreno now. Ophelia had been too exhausted for full sentences. No, the woman said gently. It's Castellano. It's always been Castellano. My name is Victoria Cross. I'm an attorney representing the Castellano family. She'd paused. May we come in? We've been searching for you for 7 years. Now, standing in that courtyard with her dress torn and 200 people laughing, Ophelia remembered what Victoria had told her next. Everything she'd believed about herself had been a lie. Everything was about to change. She walked toward the exit, shoulders straight despite the torn fabric and the whispers. Near the gate, she paused and looked back once. Jax was kissing Bianca, showing off for his guests. Victorious. Cruel. So certain of his power. 6 days, Ophelia whispered to herself. 6 days until his reception. 6 days to prepare. 6 days until she destroyed him completely. The woman in the black suit, Victoria, waited by a black Mercedes. She opened the door. Ready to reclaim everything they stole from you? Ophelia slid into the leather interior, inhaling the scent of luxury she'd forgotten existed. Yes, she said. I'm ready. What punishment does Jax deserve for his cruelty? Comment below. Prison, public humiliation, financial ruin, or all 3. 6 weeks later, Ophelia stood in front of a full-length mirror in a penthouse suite at the Castellano Grand Hotel and barely recognized herself. The exhausted, broken woman from Jax's wedding was gone. In her place stood someone who looked like she'd been born to silk and diamonds, because she had been. Your grandmother would be proud, Victoria said, adjusting the collar of Ophelia's tailored Armani dress. You look exactly like her at your age. The past 42 days had been a whirlwind of revelations, each one more staggering than the last. Ophelia Castellano wasn't just some random name. She was the sole heir to the Castellano Empire, a luxury hotel conglomerate worth $3.4 billion. Her grandfather, Lorenzo Castellano, had built the business from a single boutique hotel in Manhattan to 73 properties across 15 countries. When Ophelia was 17, her parents, Lorenzo's only son Marcus and his wife Diane, had died in a plane crash. Ophelia, grieving and alone, had been placed with a foster family by a social worker who'd falsified documents. That social worker, they discovered, had been paid $50,000 by a business rival of Lorenzo's to make the girl disappear before she could inherit. For 7 years, the Castellano family had searched. Private investigators. FBI contacts. International databases. They'd found nothing because Ophelia had been given a new identity in the foster system, Ophelia Chun. Different last name. Different records. Lost in bureaucracy. It was only when Ophelia had filed for divorce using her original birth certificate, required for the legal proceedings, that the family's alert system had finally pinged. Victoria had found her 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized. 3 weeks after Jax had taken everything and left her with nothing. Except he hadn't taken everything. He'd never touched what truly mattered. The forensic accountants finished their report, Victoria said, handing Ophelia a leather portfolio. You'll want to see this before the reception. Ophelia opened it. Page after page of evidence, each one more damning than the last. During their marriage, Jax had systematically stolen from her. The small bookkeeping business she'd started, he'd convinced her to make him a co-signer on the business account for legal protection. Then he'd transferred $847,000 in client funds to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. He'd covered it by creating fake invoices and manipulating her books while she'd been working 60-hour weeks to grow the business. When the business inevitably collapsed under mysterious accounting errors, Ophelia had blamed herself. Believed she wasn't smart enough, wasn't careful enough. Had let Jax comfort her while he'd pocketed nearly $1 million of her money. There was more. He'd accessed her medical records after her first miscarriage, the one at 6 months, the one that had nearly killed her. While she'd been sedated and grieving, he'd convinced her to sign insurance documents. Those documents had actually been power of attorney papers giving him control of her assets and medical decisions. He'd used them to lock her out of her own grandmother's inheritance, a small trust fund worth $50,000 that had finally matured. The money had gone straight into an account he'd opened in her name but controlled exclusively. The file included recordings. Jax and his lawyer, planning the divorce strategy. Jax laughing about how easy it had been to manipulate that stupid, trusting little girl. Jax and Bianca, 6 months ago, before the divorce was final. On the recording, Bianca's voice was crystal clear. "So you're really taking everything? Even the baby's money?" Jax's response, "She's too dumb to fight back. And too broke to afford a real lawyer. By the time the kid is born, I'll have full custody and she'll have nothing. Then we can just pay her off to disappear completely." Ophelia's hands shook as she closed the portfolio. She'd lost 15 pounds in the 6 weeks since the wedding humiliation. Not from stress, but from finally having nutritious food, prenatal care, and safety. Her cheeks had filled out. Her skin glowed. Her hair, professionally cut and colored at a salon where appointments cost $800, fell in glossy waves past her shoulders. She wore a custom Armani dress in deep emerald green, $4, $200, tailored perfectly to her 8.5-month pregnant belly. Louboutin heels, 4 inches, black patent leather. A diamond necklace that had belonged to her grandmother, 60 carats, worth $2.3 million. Matching earrings. Her makeup had been done by a professional, subtle, elegant, emphasizing her eyes and cheekbones. She looked powerful, untouchable, wealthy. Everything Jax had tried to steal from her was written on her body like armor. "The reception is in 3 days, Victoria said. Saturday evening. Same venue, the Grandview Estate." She paused meaningfully. "Which, by the way, is owned by Castellano Properties. You own the building where he's holding his reception." Ophelia smiled slowly. "Does he know?" "Not yet. The property manager has been instructed to say nothing until you give the word." Over the past 6 weeks, Ophelia had done more than just discover her identity. She'd prepared for war. She'd met with criminal attorneys, filed police reports with evidence, obtained restraining orders. The district attorney was building a case against Jax for fraud, embezzlement, and coercion. She'd hired a team of private security, former Secret Service agents who now worked exclusively for high-net-worth individuals requiring protection. She'd reunited with her grandfather Lorenzo, a fierce, sharp-eyed man of 78 who'd wept when he first saw her and then immediately started planning Jax's destruction with the precision of a military general. She'd moved into the family penthouse, 9,000 square feet overlooking Central Park. Her daughter's nursery had been decorated by the same designer who'd done celebrity homes. Everything pink and white and gold, fit for a princess. Most importantly, she'd practiced. Standing in front of mirrors, rehearsing her speech. What she'd say when she faced Jax. How she'd deliver each piece of evidence. Victoria had coached her like a trial lawyer prepping a witness. "Remember," Victoria had said during their sessions. "Calm and cold. Don't let him see emotion. Emotion is weakness to men like him. You want to be ice." Ophelia studied herself in the mirror now. Touched the diamonds at her throat. Felt the baby kick strongly, as if encouraging her mother's transformation. "I'm ready," she said. Victoria smiled. "Let's destroy him." The plan was simple. Jax and Bianca's reception was Saturday at 7 p.m. 250 guests. Live band. 7-course dinner. Open bar with top-shelf liquor. Cost, $180,000. All of it happening in a building Ophelia owned. She'd arrive at 8 p.m., after dinner, when everyone was drinking and relaxed. She'd have the evidence loaded on the venue's projection screens she controlled. She'd have law enforcement on standby, already coordinated through the DA's office. And she'd have the one thing Jax had never expected her to possess: power. 3 days, Ophelia whispered, her hand on her belly. 3 days and Daddy's going to learn what happens when you underestimate the wrong woman. Her daughter kicked in response, as if she understood. How should Ophelia expose Jax at the reception? Comment your ideal scenario: public screens, police raid, or something even more devastating. The Grandview Estate glittered like a jewel box on Saturday evening. Jax stood at the center of the marble ballroom, champagne flute raised, basking in the attention of 250 guests. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across tables draped in ivory silk. The centerpieces, towering arrangements of white roses and orchids, had cost $800 each. 30 tables. Do the math. To my beautiful wife, Jax announced, pulling Bianca close. She giggled, her $18,000 Vera Wang reception dress shimmering under the lights. The woman who proved that trading up is always the right choice. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Knowing laughter. Several guests had been at the wedding 6 weeks ago. They'd witnessed Ophelia's humiliation. They knew exactly what trading up meant. Jax's best man, Cole, raised his glass. To Jax, who finally figured out that quality women are worth the investment. More laughter. Patricia Moreno, Jax's mother, beamed from table 3, her $40,000 Cartier bracelet catching the light as she applauded. The band, flown in from Los Angeles, cost $35,000, played something jazzy and sophisticated. Couples danced. Servers in crisp uniforms circulated with appetizers, caviar blinis, truffle mac and cheese bites, lobster croquettes. The bar served Cristal, Macallan 25, Clace Azul Ultra. Bianca's father, Marcus Reed, held court near the south windows, talking loudly about his latest commercial development, a mixed-use property in Brooklyn that would change the skyline. He'd already had 4 glasses of scotch. His cheeks were flushed. Everything was perfect. Everything was exactly as Jax had planned. "Remember that pathetic ex-wife of yours?" one of Jax's college buddies asked, approaching with a rocks glass of bourbon. "The pregnant one you destroyed at the wedding?" Jax grinned. "Oh, Ophelia? Yeah, heard she got evicted. Probably living in a shelter somewhere." He shrugged theatrically. "Not my problem. Should have thought about that before she tried to trap me with a kid." "Cold man," the friend said, but he was laughing. "Strategic," Jax corrected. "My lawyer says we've got full custody locked up. Judge took one look at her bank statements and living situation and basically pre-ruled in my favor. The baby will be mine. Bianca's already planning the nursery." Bianca twirled nearby, showing off her dress to a group of women. "We're thinking soft blues and grays," she said. "Very modern. Very sophisticated. Not tacky pink like some basic people would choose." The women murmured approval. At 8:07 p.m., the main doors opened. The sound cut through the music and conversation like a knife. Every head turned. Ophelia stood in the doorway. But this wasn't the broken, pregnant woman in a borrowed dress. This wasn't the girl they'd laughed at, pitted, dismissed. This was someone else entirely. She wore emerald green Armani, tailored to perfection around her pregnant belly. The dress had probably cost more than half the guest's monthly rent. Diamond earrings caught the light, 2 carats each flawless. The necklace at her throat was a river of brilliance that made the room's chandeliers look dull by comparison. Her hair was styled in soft waves, professional and elegant. Her makeup was subtle but perfect. She wore Louboutin heels, red soles flashing with each step, and carried herself with the posture of someone who'd never questioned her right to occupy space. Behind her, 3 figures entered. Victoria Cross in a sharp black suit. 2 men in dark clothing, clearly security, clearly expensive. They flanked Ophelia like an honor guard. Outside, visible through the windows, a black Bentley Bentayga waited. The 2024 model. Base price, $235,000. The room went silent. Jax's champagne flute froze halfway to his lips. His face drained of color, then flushed crimson. What are you doing here?" Ophelia smiled. Calm. Cold. Exactly as Victoria had coached her. "Hello, Jax," she said. Her voice carried across the silent ballroom. "Enjoying your reception?" Bianca clutched Jax's arm. "You need to leave. This is a private event. You're not invited." "Actually," Ophelia said, walking forward slowly, her heels clicking on the marble, "I own this building. The Grandview Estate is a Castellano property. I'm Ophelia Castellano, sole heir to Castellano Hotels. Which means this is my venue. You're having your reception in my ballroom." Gasps erupted. Phones emerged from pockets and purses. Someone whispered, "Castellano? The Hotel Empire." Jax laughed, but it sounded strangled. That's insane. You're nobody. You're a broke waitress who got knocked up. I was, Ophelia agreed. Because you stole everything from me during our marriage. But we'll get to that. She nodded to Victoria. Victoria pulled out a small remote. The room's large projection screens, originally set up to show the couple's love story slideshow, flickered to life. Bank statements appeared. Highlighted transactions. Dates. Amounts. August 2023, Ophelia said, her voice steady. You transferred $200,000 from our business account to an offshore account in Grand Cayman. Account number 8847 to 3392, Cayman National Bank. Your account. Jax's eyes went wide. Those are fake documents. She's lying. The screen changed. A recording began to play. Audio only, but the voices were crystal clear. Jax's voice. The business is hemorrhaging money. We need to shut it down. Ophelia's voice, younger, tired. But I've worked so hard. Can we? Jax's voice. Ophelia, you're not cut out for this. You're too emotional. Let me handle the finances. A timestamp appeared, 2 days before $200,000 disappeared. The guests murmured. Someone gasped. Marcus Reed put down his scotch glass with a heavy thunk. Bianca backed away from Jax slightly. Jax? What is this? Nothing, Jax said quickly. She's crazy. Everyone knows she's crazy. She's been stalking me since the divorce. Really? Ophelia's smile widened. Then explain this. The screen changed again. Another recording. This one had video. Jax and his lawyer in an office. The lawyer's nameplate visible, Gordon and Associates. Jax's voice on the recording, so we clean out the accounts before she realizes what's happening. By the time the divorce is final, she'll have nothing and no way to prove where the money went. The lawyer's voice, what about the business assets? Jax, laughing, already transferred to offshore accounts. She signed the papers thinking they were insurance documents. She's too stupid to read what she signs. The timestamp, 3 months before the divorce filing. The ballroom erupted. Voices overlapping. Phones recording. A woman at table 7 said loudly, "Oh my God, he's a thief." Patricia Moreno stood abruptly, her face ashen. Jax, tell me this isn't real. Jax spun toward his mother. She faked these. The FBI verified every recording, Ophelia said calmly. As did 3 independent forensic audio analysts. The bank records have been authenticated by the IRS. You stole $847,000 from me, Jax. And I have proof of every single transaction. Bianca's face had gone white. $800,000? That's not even the worst part, Ophelia said. She nodded to Victoria again. The screen changed one more time. Medical records appeared. Highlighted sections. A signature, clearly forged, the handwriting analysis shown side by side. While I was sedated in the hospital after our daughter's miscarriage, the one at 6 months, the one you pretended to grieve with me, you had me sign power of attorney documents. Then you used them to steal my grandmother's inheritance. $50,000. Money meant for the baby. No, Bianca whispered. She dropped Jax's arm like it burned. You told me she gave you that money willingly. She did. She's lying. Jax's voice rose to a shout. This is all fake. She's psychotic. Then why, Ophelia asked softly, are there police officers waiting outside right now with a warrant for your arrest? Jax lunged toward the exit. Victoria's security team moved instantly, blocking his path. They didn't touch him. They didn't need to. 2 6'3" former Secret Service agents standing shoulder to shoulder were obstacle enough. You can't do this, Jax snarled. You're nobody. You have nothing. Ophelia walked closer until she stood 3 feet from him. Close enough to see the panic in his eyes. The fear he was trying to hide with rage. I'm Ophelia Castellano, she said quietly. My family's net worth is $3.4 billion. I own 73 hotels in 15 countries. I own this building. And tomorrow morning, I own you. Through the ballroom windows, red and blue lights flashed. Police cruisers pulling up to the entrance. Bianca started crying. Her father rushed over, already on his phone, already calling his lawyer. Patricia Moreno sank back into her chair, her hand over her mouth. The band had stopped playing. 250 people stood frozen, watching, recording, witnessing. And Jax, cruel, confident, untouchable Jax, finally understood. He destroyed the wrong woman. Is this exposure enough, or should it go further? Vote below. Does Jax deserve additional revelations, or should the police take him now? Wait, Ophelia said as the police officers entered the ballroom. There's more. Detective Sarah Winters, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, paused at Ophelia's gesture. They'd coordinated this carefully. The timing had to be perfect. Jax was already backing toward a side exit, his face slick with sweat. This is harassment. I'm calling my lawyer. You can't. Screen 4, Ophelia said to Victoria. A new document appeared. Bank statements from 6 different accounts. Highlighted transactions spanning 3 years. The $847,000 you stole from me wasn't your first time, Ophelia said, her voice carrying to every corner of the silent ballroom. You've been running this scheme since college. The screen split into multiple windows. Each one showed a different woman's photo next to financial records. Natalie Pierce. You dated her junior year. Convinced her to invest $50,000 in your startup. The company never existed. Account closed 3 months later. Money disappeared. A woman near table 12 gasped. That's my sister. Oh my God, Natalie tried to tell people and everyone said she was lying. Jade Morrison, Ophelia continued. Senior year. She inherited $125,000 from her grandfather. You proposed, convinced her to combine finances for the future. Broke off the engagement 6 months later. She ended up in debt trying to recover. You bought your first BMW with her money. Jade's face appeared on screen, a screenshot from a police report filed in 2019. Dismissed as a civil matter. No charges filed. That's 4 years ago, Victoria added. We found 7 other women. Total stolen, $1.3 million. You've been doing this for years, Jax. Targeting women, gaining their trust, stealing their money, and disappearing. Jax's face had gone from red to gray. Those are all civil matters. Relationships gone bad. That's not. Fraud is fraud, Detective Winters said coldly. Doesn't matter if you dated them first. Cole, the best man, was edging toward the exit. Ophelia's security stepped in front of him. Oh no, Ophelia said. You're not going anywhere, Cole. Screen 5. Text messages appeared. Between Jax and Cole. Dates spanning the entire duration of Jax and Ophelia's marriage. Jax just transferred another $50K from the business. Oh, still hasn't noticed. Cole, nice. When you splitting it with me? Jax, after divorce is final. We'll flip it through the dealership books like usual. Cole, your old man know you're using his business to launder? Jax, what he doesn't know won't hurt him. Patricia Moreno made a choking sound. You used our business? Our family's business for she couldn't finish. Cole helped him hide the money, Ophelia explained. Fake invoices through Moreno Motors. Cash transactions that looked legitimate but were actually Jax paying himself with my money. The IRS is very interested in those records. Cole's face crumbled. Jax, you told me this was legal. You said she'd given you permission. Shut up. Jax screamed. Just shut up. Screen 6, Ophelia said. This one made even Detective Winters' expression harden. A recording played. Audio only. Background noise of a car engine. Jax's voice. If she won't sign the custody papers, we'll have to convince her another way. Cole's voice. What do you mean? Jax's voice. She works that late shift at the diner, right? Walks to her car alone at 2 a.m. Maybe someone follows her. Scares her. Makes her understand she's not safe. Cole's voice. Dude, that's. Jax's voice. I'm not saying hurt her. Just scare her. Pregnant women are vulnerable. A little fear goes a long way. The timestamp, 2 weeks before Ophelia had been evicted. The ballroom exploded with horrified gasps and shouts. Bianca stumbled backward, her hand over her mouth. You planned to. It was just talk. Jax shouted. We never did anything. No, Ophelia said quietly. Because someone was following me. For weeks. A man in a dark hoodie. He waited outside the diner. Followed me to my car. I was terrified. I had to get rides from coworkers because I was afraid to walk alone. She paused, letting that sink in. That was Cole, she said, turning to look at him. Wasn't it? We have you on security footage from the diner parking lot. 5 different nights. Same hoodie. Same car, a Moreno Motors loaner vehicle. Cole's legs buckled. He grabbed a chair to stay upright. I wasn't going to hurt her. Jax said just to scare her, that's all. Conspiracy to commit assault on a pregnant woman, Detective Winters said. That's a felony. Screen 7, Victoria said. Another recording. This one video. Jax and Bianca in a restaurant. Upscale, intimate. The timestamp was 7 months ago. 2 months before the divorce was finalized. Bianca, when will you actually leave her? Jax, soon. I'm documenting everything to make her look unstable. Crazy texts, irrational behavior. By the time we're done, no judge will give her custody. Bianca, but she's not crazy. Jax, she will be once I'm done gaslighting her. Already got her convinced she's bad with money, bad at business, bad at everything. Depression, anxiety, it's all documented in her medical records. She'll crack eventually. Bianca, that's kind of evil. Jax laughing, that's strategy, babe. Bianca's face drained of all color. She looked around at the 250 guests, all staring at her with disgust and horror. I didn't know he was, her voice broke. She yanked the ring off her finger and threw it at Jax. The 4-carat diamond bounced off his chest and clattered across the marble floor. We're done. We're so done. She ran for the exit, her $18,000 dress trailing behind her. Her father followed, already on the phone with his lawyer, already trying to distance his family from the disaster. Patricia Moreno stood, tears streaming down her face. You're not my son. I don't know who you are, but you're not my son. She looked at Detective Winters. Whatever he stole, whatever he owes, our family will make restitution. Every penny. Jax's face twisted with rage and desperation. Mom, you can't. I can and I will. Patricia's voice was ice. You used our business to commit crimes. You terrorized a pregnant woman. You're a monster. She walked out, head high despite her tears. One by one, guests began leaving. Fast. As if proximity to Jax might contaminate them. Within 5 minutes, the ballroom was half empty. Detective Winters approached Jax, pulling handcuffs from her belt. Jax Moreno, you're under arrest for grand theft, fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, conspiracy to commit assault, and coercion. You have the right to remain silent. No. Jax lunged at Ophelia. You bitch. You ruined everything. Victoria's security grabbed him before he got within 3 feet. They held him as Detective Winters cuffed him, reading his rights in a calm, professional voice. Cole was cuffed next, crying, begging, saying it was all Jax's idea. The DA has already filed charges, Detective Winters said. Grand theft, 15 to 25 years. Fraud, 10 to 15 years. Money laundering, 20 years. Conspiracy, 5 to 10 years. Running concurrent, you're looking at 25 years minimum, Jax. No bail. You're a flight risk with offshore accounts. You can't prove, I'll fight this, my lawyer will. Your lawyer is already under investigation, Victoria said. For conspiracy and accessory charges. He knew exactly what you were doing. Ophelia stepped forward one last time. She stood directly in front of Jax, close enough to see the sweat beading on his forehead, the terror in his eyes. You called me nothing, she said softly. You said I was nobody. You tore my dress in front of everyone and laughed. She smiled, and it was the coldest thing Jax had ever seen. I'm worth $3.4 billion, Jax. I own 73 hotels. I own this building. I own properties in 15 countries. I have lawyers in 5 states and 3 countries working on my behalf. My grandfather is Lorenzo Castellano. Maybe you've heard of him? Forbes 400, philanthropist, man with enough power to make people disappear from business forever. She leaned closer. You're going to prison. Your family has disowned you. Your wife left you. Your friends have abandoned you. Your money is frozen. Your business is being investigated. And when you're released in 25 years, if you survive that long, you'll have nothing. No reputation, no career, no future. She placed her hand on her pregnant belly. My daughter will grow up in a penthouse overlooking Central Park. She'll attend the best schools. She'll never want for anything. She'll never know what it's like to be hungry or scared or desperate. Her voice dropped to a whisper. And you'll rot in a cell, knowing that the woman you tried to destroy is the one who destroyed you instead. Jax's legs gave out. The officers held him upright as they dragged him toward the exit. In the doorway, he looked back once. Ophelia stood in the center of the ballroom, diamonds glittering, head high, victorious. Surrounded by empty tables and abandoned champagne glasses and the wreckage of his carefully planned perfect night. The last thing Jax saw before the police car doors closed was Ophelia turning away, dismissing him like he was nothing. Like he'd always been nothing. And he finally understood what that felt like. Does the punishment fit the crime? What would you add to make his downfall complete? Comment below. 3 months later, Ophelia stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse, watching snow fall over Central Park. Behind her, in the nursery painted soft pink and gold, her daughter slept peacefully in a $3,000 Italian crib. Elena Rose Castellano had been born 6 weeks ago, 8 pounds, 2 ounces, perfect in every way. The delivery had been at Mount Sinai, private suite, the best obstetrician's money could buy. No more clinics with flickering lights and peeling linoleum. No more terror about whether she could afford the hospital bill. Ophelia's grandfather Lorenzo sat in the living room, Elena cradled in his arms, tears streaming down his weathered face as he whispered to his great-granddaughter in Italian. He visited every day, making up for the 7 years they'd lost. The prison reports came in, Victoria said, entering with a leather folder. Thought you'd want to see. Ophelia took the folder, settled onto the cream-colored sofa that had cost more than her old apartment's annual rent. Jax had been sentenced to 28 years. The judge had been merciless. You are a predator, Judge Martha Chun had said at sentencing. You targeted vulnerable women, gained their trust, and systematically destroyed their lives for profit. You showed no remorse. You attempted to intimidate the victim. The court finds no reason for leniency. He'd been sent to Rikers Island initially, then transferred to Attica Correctional Facility upstate. Maximum security. The report Victoria provided was thorough. Jax had been attacked his second week. 3 inmates who'd heard about his crimes, targeting pregnant women, stealing from the vulnerable, had decided he needed a lesson in respect. Broken ribs, shattered jaw, internal bleeding. He'd spent 2 weeks in the prison hospital. His appeals had all been denied. Every lawyer he'd contacted had refused to take his case once they saw the evidence. The few who'd initially agreed had withdrawn after facing pressure from other firms that did business with Castellano hotels. His mother Patricia had visited once. She'd left after 10 minutes, unable to look at him. She'd never returned. The family had issued a public statement disowning him completely. Moreno Motors had cooperated fully with investigators, terminated Cole, and established a restitution fund for Jax's victims. Cole had received 12 years. He'd testified against Jax in exchange for a reduced sentence. Last report, transferred to protective custody after being beaten unconscious by inmates. The lawyer Gordon had gotten 8 years for conspiracy and was disbarred. His firm had dissolved. Bianca had fled to Europe. Her father's business had taken a hit from the association with Jax, losing 3 major contracts. She'd posted once on Instagram, a long apology, claiming she'd been manipulated too. The comments had been brutal. She deleted all social media within a week. There's more, Victoria said quietly. Medical report from last week. Ophelia read it, her face neutral. Jax had been attacked again. This time, the damage was permanent. A gang had cornered him in the laundry room, retaliation for him owing protection money he couldn't pay. They'd beaten him with a metal pipe. Spinal injury. Paralyzed from the waist down. He'd spend the next 25 years in a wheelchair, dependent on others for his most basic needs. The same helplessness he'd inflicted on Ophelia when she'd been pregnant, broke, and terrified. Karma was patient, but she was thorough. "How do you feel?" Victoria asked. Ophelia considered the question. She looked around her penthouse, 9,000 square feet of luxury, art on the walls worth millions, floor-to-ceiling views of the city. Then she looked at Elena, sleeping peacefully with her great-grandfather humming Italian lullabies. "Nothing," she said honestly. "I don't hate him anymore. I don't think about him unless someone brings him up. He's just nothing to me now." And that, she realized, was the truest revenge. Not rage, not satisfaction, complete indifference. Victoria smiled. That's growth. The past 3 months had been transformative in ways beyond the obvious. Ophelia had gained 12 pounds, healthy weight, finally. Her doctor had pronounced Elena and her both in perfect health. No more anemia, no more malnutrition, no more stress-induced complications. She'd met someone. Not a romantic relationship, not yet, but Dr. Marcus Wright, a pediatrician at Mount Sinai who'd cared for Elena after birth. Kind, funny, genuinely interested in Ophelia's story. They'd had coffee twice. He'd never once asked about her money. She'd started working with the family business. Not out of obligation, but genuine interest. Her accounting background translated well to hotel finance. Lorenzo had been impressed with her suggestions for improving profit margins. She'd established the Ophelia Castellano Foundation, dedicated to helping pregnant women in crisis. Emergency housing, medical care, legal assistance, job training. First-year budget, $50 million. They'd already helped 847 women, the same number as the thousands Jax had stolen from her. The foundation's first shelter had opened in the Bronx last month. 40 beds, full medical staff, childcare, job counseling. Named the Elena Rose House, after her daughter. Maria, her former neighbor who'd lent her address and offered her couch, now worked for the foundation as a community outreach coordinator. Salary, $85,000 annually, full benefits, company car. She'd cried when Ophelia had offered her the job. Rick, the diner manager who'd fired her, had sent a groveling apology email and a request for a business loan. Ophelia had deleted it without responding. Some people deserved nothing, not even acknowledgement. The 7 other women Jax had defrauded had all received full restitution from Ophelia personally. She tracked each one down, written checks covering their losses plus interest, and offered free legal services if they wanted to pursue additional charges. 3 had become friends. They met monthly for lunch, survivors supporting survivors. Her apartment building, the one with the broken radiator and brown water stains, had been purchased by Castellano Properties. Ophelia had overseen complete renovation. New plumbing, new HVAC, new appliances. Rent was reduced by 30%. Tenants who'd been evicted for falling behind were offered their apartments back with first month free. The landlord who'd taped that eviction notice to her door? Served with multiple building code violations and housing court citations. His properties had been seized by the city. Karma. Elena stirred in Lorenzo's arms, making the small mewling sounds that meant she'd be hungry soon. Ophelia went to her, lifting her daughter gently, breathing in that perfect baby scent. "Your mama was scared once," Ophelia whispered to Elena. "She was alone and broke and didn't know how she'd take care of you. But she never gave up. And now look at us." Elena's tiny fingers wrapped around Ophelia's pinky, gripping with surprising strength. Lorenzo wiped his eyes. "Your grandmother would be so proud. Both of you, beautiful, strong women." "Tell me about her again," Ophelia said, settling into the rocking chair that had been custom-made in Florence. Lorenzo launched into another story, Sofia Castellano, who'd fled Italy at 17 with nothing but courage and her grandmother's pearl necklace. Who'd worked 3 jobs to put Lorenzo through school. Who'd believed in family above all else. She always said, Lorenzo concluded, the quietly powerful wait for the perfect moment. She never bragged, never threatened. Just built an empire brick by brick and let her success speak for itself. Ophelia smiled, looking down at Elena. That sounds familiar. 6 months ago, she'd been in a studio apartment with $340 in her bank account, wearing a borrowed dress, watching her ex-husband mock her in front of 200 people. Now she sat in a $45 million penthouse, holding her healthy daughter, surrounded by family, with more money than she could spend in 10 lifetimes and a foundation helping women who'd been where she was. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Coffee tomorrow? There's this amazing place in Brooklyn I want to show you. They have the best cannoli. She smiled and typed back, it's a date. Life wasn't perfect. She still had nightmares sometimes about being evicted, being broke, being helpless. Trauma didn't disappear just because your bank account grew. But she was healing. Day by day, moment by moment. And Jax? He was nothing. A cautionary tale. A bad memory growing fainter. He tried to break her, tried to take everything, tried to make her believe she was worthless. Instead, he'd broken himself on her quiet strength. Ophelia looked out at Central Park, at the snow falling softly over the city, at her reflection in the window, woman, mother, survivor, billionaire. She thought about that moment in the Grandview Estate ballroom. Standing in her torn borrowed dress, humiliated and pregnant and penniless. The moment when something inside her had gone still instead of breaking. That moment had been her crucible. Her transformation. Her awakening. Thank you, she whispered to the woman she'd been then. The woman who'd refused to die or disappear or surrender. That woman had saved them both. Elena cooed softly, her dark eyes, so like Ophelia's, staring up with complete trust. Complete love. You're going to have an amazing life, Ophelia promised her daughter. And I'm going to make sure you never, ever know what it feels like to be helpless. But I'll also teach you what I learned, that power isn't about money or revenge. It's about knowing your worth, even when everyone else is telling you you're worthless. Lorenzo stood, kissed Ophelia's forehead, kissed Elena's tiny hand. I'll leave you too. Dinner tomorrow? I'm making osso buco. We'll be there, Ophelia said. When he left, she sat in the quiet luxury of her home, holding her daughter, watching snow fall over the city she now owned a piece of. Somewhere upstate, Jack sat in a wheelchair in a prison cell, with nothing and no one, facing 25 more years of the helplessness he'd inflicted on others. And Ophelia felt nothing about it. Not satisfaction. Not vindication. Not even pity. Just the quiet peace of knowing that karma never forgets. Justice may be slow but it's inevitable, and the quietly powerful don't need to announce themselves. They simply are. Elena fell back asleep against Ophelia's chest, safe and warm and loved. And that perfect moment of peace and safety, was the truest victory of all. Karma doesn't rush, Ophelia whispered, echoing the words she'd learned were her grandmother Sophia's favorite saying. It waits for the perfect audience. And then it destroys without mercy. What's the biggest lesson from this story? Comment below, and if this moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear that quiet strength always wins in the end.